This little bit that I'm about to show you, while it was released on Sunday, is actually over a week old. However, this video right here is kind of an extension of a video that I did earlier today where I talked about why it was that Biden was losing young voters. But of course, I should have just went ahead and told you guys that he's losing voters pretty much across the board.
And Biden seems to be struggling with key demographic groups that he would need to win, and win big, if he stands a chance of being reelected.
John, there is significant softness in the support for Joe Biden among core Democrats. In this poll, he's carrying black voters by 61 points. Well, that sounds like a lot, but he carried them by 84 points back in 2020. Latino voters, a very slight Biden edge in this poll, but it was a 21-point advantage in the exit polls back in 2020. And among younger voters, under 30, we're actually seeing Trump with a slight edge. That was a big win for Biden last time around. It's particularly stark to see that difference among voters of color. Black voters under age 50, far less likely in this poll to say they're supporting Joe Biden than older black voters.
And with all the protests that are happening, with everything that's going on, especially at these college campuses, it's pretty obvious that they can't use two little numbers anymore. And by that, I mean the one that includes like a 6 and a 1 because, well...
How do the Democrats, how do all of us on that side say January 6th was wrong if you can have the same pictures going on college campuses?
Good Lord, don't make a parallel with January 6th.
You lose the moral high ground.
That has happened, though.
Okay,
that has happened.
So we know what's going on here.
Can't use that this year. But here's the thing, though. This video right here is a bit of an extension to a video that I did earlier today. The earlier video that I did, I talked a lot about Biden losing young voters and why that was the case. That video right there will be placed in the comment section. This video right here is to talk about what we know, things that have came out as far as outside agitators are concerned, which, by the way, the Associated Press, not exactly a conservative outlet, put out this very interesting article that I'll be linking in the description box for you guys that explains who else is actually donating to the cause. The liberal cause. I talked about this in a video last week, and of course it was the guy with the eyes like, which, by the way, I decided to do that anyways, just to be doing it. But of course, I'm showing you guys a photo of that guy there. And of course, you can't really say his name here on this platform unless YouTube, let's just say if you say it, YouTube will find a way to dox your video or put it in the, they just, they'll give you that nice little yellow dollar sign, which limits your ads. They'll do something, copyright claim it, just about anything in the world, if you actually mention that person. However, I don't think that they have a thing against mentioning Bill and Melinda Gates, because obviously they came up in this article. Also, Rockefeller. A lot of people have been donating to this situation. Of course, I'm going to be explaining to you guys why they may be doing that, especially if you see everything. But I'm also going to tell you why it is that it won't work, because obviously when what you're about to hear, the extension of what you guys saw earlier, which I'm about to play for you guys one more time. I hate to say this, but as much as I cannot stand MSNBC, they really let the mask slip on this one. And also, to go on top of this right here, I got to agree with Scarborough, believe it or not.
The Democrats, how do all of us on that side say January 6th was wrong if you can have the same pictures going on college campuses?
Good Lord, don't make a parallel with January 6th.
The riots on college campuses, the riots at the Chicago Convention in '68, all of those things moved my family from being Democrats their entire life to being Republicans. If you're offended by this, please, I'm trying to help you. I don't want Donald Trump to get elected, all right?
There you go.
Trying to help you. If you're too stupid to figure that out, you change to another channel.
In 1968, when people saw the riots that happened on the Democratic National Convention floor and was going on outside, that was actually televised. History Channel's got archival footage. They've even done documentaries on the '68 convention. So what Scarborough is saying there is actually true. I just kind of find it funny that there's somebody in the background trying to say don't compare this to that date, because the reason why is because, quite frankly, that's one of the things that they're running on is that date. Threats to democracy. And of course, what you guys saw at the very, very beginning, it was mentioned right there at the very end by Kellyanne Conway, Roe v. Wade. Which, of course, Roe v. Wade is not exactly at the top of the list. Abortion is not. But this, somehow or another, though, single women will still show up in droves to vote for the opportunity to kill a child. Just saying. That's true. Back in 1968, the country got fed up with all the Vietnam War protests. Now, here's the thing. Those protests did not do a single thing to draw the war to an end. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of things that they do not want to tell you about the Vietnam War and Vietnam War protests, but I'll say this right here. There's a video that was made by a content creator not too long ago. The guy's not a Trump supporter, not a Trump voter or anything like that. He's not even really a military historian, but he did actually lay out a pretty, let's just say, a pretty solid case for why it was that a lot of information was hidden. And of course, he also brought in a lot of receipts about those protests and also things that the NVA that they were doing to the South Vietnamese and also to U.S. personnel. It's actually a movie review, but it's actually a very in-depth movie review that also covers exactly what was going on in the Vietnam War, the things that, quite frankly, the media does not like to highlight. I'm showing you guys the card here. I advise you guys watch it because it's not just a movie review, it's also a bit of a historical review at the same time, even though it's obviously on a film that is not a historically accurate film, that right there being Apocalypse Now, but of course there's a lot of historical parallels and a lot of receipts. The reason why I'm going on about this right now is to kind of explain to people that, once again, you can obviously see that mainstream media has this massive stranglehold on people. And of course, that massive stranglehold on people forces some people to, let's just say, stick their heads between their butts and not exactly look at exactly what the hell is going on. Or they love to, put their fingers in their ear and do the whole la 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 crap, of course, because obviously the place is burning down behind their back. And of course, they don't want to acknowledge it, nor do they even want to put out the fire. That right there is what the hell is going on. Now, right now in the B-roll footage, I'm showing you this right here that occurred at the University of Michigan. Michigan Wolverines, their graduation ceremony, they had pro-Palestine protesters right there in the very, very crowd while they were doing it. They also had other protests going on this past weekend because obviously it was commencement weekend, and at the universities, a lot of people graduated. I think some graduated last week and some graduated the following week, or they graduate next week. Fact of the matter is this right here. A lot of graduations got interrupted by pro-Palestine protests. And of course, while you may hear some people say, well, at least the protest was peaceful, at the end of the day, though, there's still a lot of students out there who, quite frankly, were pretty obviously pissed off by this, especially given that this incoming high school class, COVID was going on then, and now you go to the university, you graduate, next thing you know, you got a bunch of morons that show up. But speaking of those morons.
200 arrests made overnight. Cops snatching their masks off like Scooby-Doo villains. Wait, that's not a college student. That's a 40-year-old woman. Other protesters cuffed and frog-marched, grinning ear to ear. Their parents must be so proud. At Portland State University, anarchists also laid siege to a library that was, let's be honest, already empty. Police reports that the only books they stole were comic books. But then they retreated from the library when the cops arrived. Watch.
Yeah. I got it right now. Hey, cops are doing their job. Cops are doing their job.
Before I let Waters finish up his commentary, and of course there's some more here, I gotta say something really quick. Outside protesters, outside agitators at UCLA, outside agitators at these colleges, that doesn't really surprise me given the financial backing these people have gotten. But the thing that does surprise me, well, actually it kind of doesn't, is the trash can shields. The trash can shields. Y'all do realize that trash cans, unless they're trash cans made of aluminum or steel or some form of metal, you do realize that the trash can is not going to stop anything, right? Is a content creator on this platform named What If Altruist, a guy by the name of Rudyard, very, very smart guy, kind of young, but there are some things I do disagree with the guy on, but I do compliment his content. He had a video out recently about the incoming Civil War, or will there be another Civil War? He's made a lot of videos like that. They're actually very good. I advise you guys to go check him out. I think I'll probably link his channel in the description box for you guys. But here's one of the videos where he talks about the radical left, or those on the left showing up into combat with swords, where it is that people on the right will be showing up with actual firearms. is something that I've been saying for a very long time. And of course, you guys can obviously see it with the rubber shields, but let's just roll some more of this.
Making a shield from a Rubbermaid trash can like a homeless middle schooler playing Dungeons and Dragons? Oscar the Groucho Marx never played football because he bounced off that cop like a bowling pin. Running towards police in a bankruptcy barrel? Not the brightest escape tactic. Police don't know what to expect. Is that Hacksaw Jim Duggan or Mary Poppins? Body cam footage just released the moment the NYPD busted up Colombia's Liberation Zone. Joe Biden ran on unifying the country, and he has. Now the left and the right are chanting, "Let's go, Brandon," in pitch-perfect harmony.
I let that one run long, obviously, for a reason. But, of course, a lot of the sort of stuff that happened last week, and, of course, the stuff that happened at the University of Michigan this past weekend, obviously did happen this past weekend during commencement. Rubbermaid shields, of course, these people claiming that they're revolutionaries, while at the exact same time, these same people have been screaming and hollering for, like vegan food and crap like that. I wonder what these kids are going to be doing when they go home for the summer, or how about the ones that actually stay there? I mean, it just baffles me how stupid these people can be. But then again, though, these are also the same people who put this guy that I'm about to show you in office.
An order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans.
Joe, I don't see any Islamophobia, okay? And obviously this type of stuff right here that's going on at these campuses has got people thinking that, you know, I can't really say it here on YouTube. The only thing I'm saying is that when you come out here and you tell these people to stop protesting, and then you bring up anti-Semitism, then you turn right back around and basically be, how do I say, sympathetic to the side that's actually causing all the chaos. Yeah, not exactly a good look. And you also look very, very weak and frail in the process. This walking the tightrope of both sides is not going to work. Both sides are not going to vote for you. Just simply saying. Now, of course, if you watched the first video earlier today, then obviously you'll say that's kind of cheating because you used that clip earlier today. And by the way, there's a couple more clips here in a second that I'm going to be using to kind of expand on what we're talking about. That right there came from the first video today as well, so sit tight on that one. Not to mention the fact that it's obviously very important because this type of weak leadership will create new people on the right. Now, there'll be more videos on that topic in the future, but given the fact that most of the same characters have shown up to participate in these little ordeal, given the fact that most of the same characters are contributing cash and money to these protests that, quite frankly, we already know about, it should not surprise you. But of course, back to that that Politico article. What's funny about the Politico argument to me, and this right here is what the main purpose of the video was to talk about, and I'm going to hit it now, was that these people, like, say, and Rockefeller, and of course also Bill and Melinda Gates, the same usual suspects. What's funny about these people is that they're paying for these protests, and you might think to themselves, you might be thinking to yourself, why in the world would they pay for the movement to turn against them like they're actually doing? Well, the reason why is because they're trying to push the Biden administration to go in one direction. The one direction they're trying to get him to go into is obviously the much, much more pro-Palestine position. I've said it before in the previous video, if Biden just simply took a side and simply said something about this a lot earlier when it first happened, he probably would not be in this situation. I also, in the previous video, talked about 2020 a little bit, and I also said the same thing. The reason why that situation worked out against Trump was because, for the most part, the Democratic mayors and whatnot were already on the side of the protesters already. They were doing it to actually hurt former President Trump. I think it was Jenny Durkin, the mayor of Seattle. She was willing to let everything keep going on as far as Chaz Chop was concerned. And then out of the middle of nowhere, she chose to shut it down. Well, it didn't happen out of the middle of nowhere. That's kind of a lie. She obviously did that because these same protesters decided to show up to her house and ruin her lawn. There was also the person who took a crap on Nancy Pelosi's front porch. There was also that one too. Felix Rex did a phenomenal video on that one. He took it down years ago. I have no idea why he did that, but still at the same, maybe something's wrong with it, I don't know. But still, the point is this right here. At the end of the day, these types of movements end up eating themselves, and obviously the Democratic Party is the next thing on the menu. Now, many people have said that this right here will be the issue that ultimately ruins the Democratic Party. I believe that this right here will be the issue that ruins the Democratic Party. I agree with that 100%. But when you factor in how the economy has been handled, when you factor in the overall, how do I say, movement in the country, the social justice side, and also not to mention the fact that a lot of these people, and I want to say this right now, even though it's controversial, the people who you see protesting right now, they themselves are already black-pilled. They have no interest in voting. I'm just simply pointing that out. They are anarchists, they are chaos, and that is what they're looking to do, is cause chaos. The problem is that the more and more they cause chaos, the more and more likely it is they just piss off people on the other end. Back in 2020, former President Trump, he went from 62.9 million votes to 74.2 million votes. So obviously the riots in a way did help him out, even though he obviously lost. What happened was the anti-COVID vote came in to go along with whatever Biden was going to get, obviously with some help, you know what kind, obviously got him over. But this time around, it more than likely will not hurt. But once again, though, what was the purpose? What's the purpose of this right here? As I said before, the idea is to try to push Biden in one direction or another. It could also be possible as pushing him to go to the back to the side of Israel. But of course, Biden being the person that he is, he obviously relies heavily on polls. Now, this little bit that I'm about to show you come from an interview that Kellyanne Conway did because she was on Bill Maher the other night. And she laid out a lot of the things that was happening perfectly. Some of this, by the way, is in the previous video. But this right here is the additional stock footage I did not show you in that video. Let's go ahead and watch this first part.
On our college campuses, by the way, in our halls of Congress, 31 Democrats voted against a resolution last October 18th to condemn Hezbollah and Hamas. And the resolution clearly said, Bill, that they were concerned about institutions of higher education allowing sympathies for Hezbollah and Hamas, which our own government, Biden's government, Trump's government, have declared terrorist groups. And they specifically said in there it was going to hurt, make uncomfortable, if not worse, Jewish students with all this anti-Semitism. That was October 18th. 31 Democrats, including the most well-known young ones, a squad that doesn't do squat, for example, all voted against that resolution.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
This is the problem with Biden. Respectfully, I don't think people care about other things than young people. When are young people, whether they're single or married, ever going to be able to afford their first home, get on with the accoutrements of adult life? This economy is...
Same thing happened in the case of the Vietnam War protesters. They came out, they protested like crazy from about 1967 to about 1969. A lot of these same protesters, by the way, once they got over their high, next thing you know, they decided to go into Southern California, and it's a good portion of them joined Chuck Smith's church. Thank God they did. That's also the basis of the film Jesus Revolution. Very, very good movie. Pastor Greg Laurie, who's very big here on YouTube, he was obviously a part of that. I advise you guys to go check it out. Right now it's on Netflix right now if you guys want to see it. Very, very good movie. But of course, a lot of these other protesters would eventually go on to do what? They would go to these very, very elite universities, and what would they do? They'd practice their Marxist ideology, and they would go out of their way to indoctrinate all the other kids that would eventually come to these actual through her universities. What Yura Bezmenov said, the half-baked personalities that then came out of the 80s, and then, of course, it extended further and further and further. Universities are obviously, at least as far as some of these universities are concerned, are definitely woke indoctrination camps. However, I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people who do go to these establishments and not get indoctrinated, but they still typically are inclined to vote Democrat when they get out of college. But of course, that right there is obviously turning. I explained that in the video earlier today. It's not working out the way you think it would work out. And also to go on top of this, I think the left has gone a little bit too far with it to the point to where they absolutely look like a bunch of crazy-ass loons, which, by the way, I've known they were a bunch of crazy-ass loons. I've been saying there have been a bunch of crazy-ass loons for a very, very long time, and we've been seeing them get crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier. But the good news is that it looks like it's starting to devolve on its own. Now, granted, it doesn't look that way on the surface, but it looks that way to me because normally before it fully devolves, it kind of goes out to It normally goes out in a bit of a bang, but we'll talk more about that in other videos. Let's look at this next part because, once again, Kellyanne Conway pretty much laid the smackdown on Bill Maher and the beta male to her right.
But on the issue of war in Israel, he is in a solid position, at least when it comes to public opinion.
Well, I work for the most pro-Israel president in American history. But look, I think that...
That's true.
He was very critical of Netanyahu.
That's true.
That
Sounds like
true.
Biden is not pro-Israel either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Which position is he today? But look, on the protesters, the White House didn't seem to mind it or matter much or say anything until the optics went against him. They're worried about the political fallout for Biden instead of the fact that these spoiled brats pretend it's about free speech, it's about free stuff. Bring me lotion and vegan food. They never once said release the hostages. They never are making demands that would actually help other people.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But that's not what we're talking about. True.
That
Sounds like
true.
Biden is not pro-Israel either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Which position is he today? But look, on the protesters, the White House didn't seem to mind it or matter much or say anything until the optics went against him. They're worried about the political fallout for Biden instead of the fact that these spoiled brats pretend it's about free speech, it's about free stuff. Bring me lotion and vegan food. They never once said release the hostages. They never are making demands that would actually help other people.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But that's not what we're talking about.
So why are people turning? Why are people turning away from this stuff? Well, I've been saying this for maybe about the past week or so, that the vast majority of these protests are in fact performative. There are some true believers, of course, in the crowd. However, as I said in the previous video, you've got a lot of people ages 18 to 29 that are not in college, who are working like 2 jobs apiece. You got a lot of people aged 30 to 40 who are obviously doing the exact same thing. You got a lot of people right now who are trying to take care of the family that they have, and they may have voted Democrat back in 2020 in the hopes that they could, go back to work. And a lot of people who probably didn't vote because they didn't think that their vote would count, it wouldn't matter. Jason Whitlock was somebody who didn't vote in 2020. He's now very much on the Trump train. There was even a memo that was released not too long ago by the Democratic Party saying stop registering new voters because new voters were leaning towards the orange guy. I say orange guy affectionately, okay, so don't come over here and get all upset and whatnot. The point is this right here. People can obviously see that these protests are ruining their days, ruining their lives, and they know that they're all fake and they all know they're performative. If the protest at this point in time actually had some form of meaning or whatnot, then obviously people would quite frankly say, okay, maybe you got a point, just don't protest in front of me. Now let's actively get the freaking hell out of my damn way. There's also one more thing to say about these protests before I close the video. And before I do that, let me go ahead and take you guys back really quick. Let's go through some riots that have happened on presidential years. Okay, as a matter of fact, we're not going to start with a riot. We're going to start with a protest in 2012. Occupy Wall Street. A bunch of people went out there and protested in New York, and you even had an Occupy movement in some of the other big towns. It wasn't that big in other areas, but New York was definitely the most famous. Then President at the time, Barack Obama, came out and decided to get in front of that movement and say, oh, they're protesting the same thing. But of course, if you listen to people who were journalists at the time who were there, all the internet personalities, even some people who, quite frankly, worked for institutions like, say, Breitbart newspaper, which, by the way, was what Steve Bannon was doing at one point in time, they were discussing the fact that there were even some right-leaning protesters out there, too, who thought that the government was culpable for a lot of issues. They were spending way too much money, all that type of stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the type of stuff you normally see to protest. But for the most part, Occupy was, for the most part, peaceful. Fast forward to 2016, okay, from, I would say, 2013, 2014, going into 2016, you had a bunch of protests, you had some riots, you had all kinds of crazy things. 2016 was kind of a culmination of everything else that had happened in Obama's second term. I mean, Obama's second term really started off bad when you actually think about it. I mean, you had the Snowden revelation, you had all these other things that were coming out, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing that really got people burned at the most was the then war on cops. You had the Eric Gardner situation, Freddie Gray, all those situations, Michael Brown, and of course, people obviously got upset and people obviously took advantage of this. BLM, Black Lives Matter, actually came, I think, about from the Trayvon Martin situation, which occurred when Obama was in office's first term. We fast forward, we get to 2016. Next thing you know, you've got riots, you've got shootings, you've got all kinds of crazy stuff, and guess what happens? The incumbent party suffers, and the non-incumbent actually ends up winning. The non-incumbent, of course, was former President Trump. From 2015 all the way into 2020, you had this massive movement on college campuses where if you were right of center, you got drowned out. If you were even left of center, you got drowned out. You got called bigoted, all that type of crap there. And the university I went to, the issue wasn't as bad. But then again, though, I also didn't start going to the university I started going to until I think it was 2018 is when I went. The point of the matter is this right here. In 2016, you had riots. In 2020, you had riots as well. However, in 2020, everybody in the country saw what happened to George Floyd. As a result of this right here, a peaceful protest then suddenly turns into the grievance Olympics, and the next thing you know, riots pick up and everything begins to burn down. The thing is this right here. Once we got the full information on what was going on, people began to see exactly what happened. Next thing you know, people could actually point out what the hell the problem was. And of course, as we already know, the man was on fentanyl. The man was high as hell. Chauvin was just simply doing exactly what he'd been trained to do, which, by the way, I'm still very, very much against putting your knee on somebody's neck, but still at the same time, though, it was what the hell was allowed to do. Watch The Fall of Minneapolis. It's a damn good documentary. As a result of all this, however, what the hell would end up happening is that, of course, the American people in 2020, they had a protest that people, quite frankly, got guilted into supporting. Of course, the protests became riots, of course. And next thing you know, anything and everything began to get destroyed. And while people like myself and many other conservatives saw right through the BS and saw as nothing more than opportunism, a lot of other people did not see this. They just figured, screw it. Just give them what the hell they want. Just give them what the hell they want. You're not able to pull this off here in 2024. You see a lot of people who came out and voted. They voted basically just against what the hell was going on. So they just voted the opposite of what was in office. You're not going to have that this time around because the opposite of the thing they voted for obviously screwed things up and made things 25 times worse. And then they remembered the previous 3 years before COVID were actually phenomenally awesome. They were magnificent. So they said, put the orange guy back in office. So yes, this right here will create more Republicans, especially going into this year. As a matter of fact, it's already been happening. The fact of the matter is that people can see through this crap. They can see through the left. They can see that a lot of it is performative. It is a headache. It is a nightmare for these people, and people just want to move on with their lives. That right there is the point, and that right there is why this situation will also, like I mentioned in Friday's video, will ultimately backfire. But tell me what you guys think in the comment section. With that right there being said, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Sign off in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.